They did not know that Mr. Thomas's sisters were secretly visiting the children, pretending to welcome them to the family. In reality, they were giving the babies a harmful portion that caused their deaths. But Jennifer was different. Even though her aunt gave her the portion many times, she only got sick but then recovered and grew stronger. In the beautiful city of Port Harcourt, there lived a loving couple named Mr. and Mrs. Thomas. They had been sweethearts since high school, and together they built a successful business empire from the ground up. However, despite their success, Mr. Thomas carried a heavy burden. He had three lazy sisters who depended on him for financial support. These sisters had married and had children before Mr. Thomas did, but they still relied on their brother to provide for their families. Mrs. Thomas saw how tired her husband was from supporting his sisters. She said to him one day, "Honey, giving them fish isn't good enough, but teaching them how to fish is good." She meant that instead of giving his sisters money all the time, Mr. Thomas should help them learn how to earn money on their own. Mr. Thomas listened to his wise wife and decided to help his sisters become independent. He taught his sisters and their husbands the skills they needed to succeed. He gave them resources and support, but made it clear that he would no longer be their financial crutch. It was time for them to take responsibility for their own lives. With his sisters now independent, Mr. Thomas could focus on his own family. Mrs. Thomas soon became pregnant and gave birth to a baby boy. But sadly, he mysteriously passed away at just a very tender age. This heartbreaking pattern repeated itself with three more sons, leaving the Thomas devastated and sad. However, Mrs. Thomas got pregnant again and had a baby girl. When Jennifer was born, Mrs. Thomas prayed that she would survive and break the curse that seemed to haunt their family. Miraculously, Jennifer lived past the 3-month mark, but she often fell ill, leaving her parents worried and confused. They did not know that Mr. Thomas's sisters were secretly visiting the children, pretending to welcome them to the family. In reality, they were giving the babies a harmful portion that caused their deaths. But Jennifer was different. Even though her aunt gave her the portion many times, she only got sick but then recovered and grew stronger. As Jennifer grew up, her aunt's evil plan became more obvious. Their schemes always backfired, and Jennifer continued to thrive. By the time she turned 25, she was a strong and vibrant young woman, always thwarting her aunt's plan. Jennifer's survival and success were a testament to her inner strength and the love and determination of her parents. Jennifer's aunties were very jealous of her. They thought she had too much money and lived too well compared to them. They wanted their own children to have that wealth instead. The sisters had wasted all the money their brother had given them on failed business ventures. Now, they wanted to manipulate their brother into supporting them again. Just like before, they believed that by getting rid of Jennifer, they could make their brother take care of their financial needs and their children's well-being. One day, Jennifer came home after graduating from the university. Her father was so proud of her that he decided to throw a big party to celebrate everyone invited. Her aunties, uncles, cousins, and other family members. But something terrible happened. The food meant for Jennifer was poisoned. Just as she was about to eat it, her father quickly took it away and ate it himself. Then her mother took the food from him and ate it too. A few minutes later, Both Mr. and Mrs. Thomas started vomiting blood. They had to be rushed to the hospital. Jennifer's parents were fighting for their lives in the hospital. The poison had made them very sick. Even though the doctors tried their best, Mr. Thomas couldn't survive. He passed away, leaving Mrs. Thomas very ill and Jennifer heartbroken and alone. The funeral was filled with tears and sadness. Jennifer's aunties pretended to be very sad, but they were only pretending. Deep down, they were happy that their brother was gone. As soon as the burial was over, Jennifer's aunties turned against her. They accused her of killing her own father. "She is a monster," they screamed. She wanted all the money and property for herself. Jennifer couldn't believe what she was hearing. How could her own aunties say such terrible things about her? But the aunties didn't stop there. They planned to sell Jennifer into slavery. They wanted to send her far away so they could take over Mr. Thomas's property without anyone knowing. One night, a man named Baron and his gang stormed into Jennifer's house. They followed her auntie's orders. Jennifer tried to fight back, but they knocked her out with a strong substance. Then they dragged her away into the night. When Jennifer woke up, she found herself in a cage. She was surrounded by men who were looking at her like she was a piece of meat. An auctioneer's voice boomed through the room. "Bidding starts at 10,000 US dollars. Who will start the bidding?" A rich-looking man shouted, "I will give you 20,000 for her." The crowd murmured, and another man counted, "I will give you 30,000." The bids kept going on higher. 50,000. No, 60,000. "I will give you 61,000. Suddenly, a tall man with dark hair stepped out of the shadows. His eyes very sharp. He smiled confidently and said, "I will give you $100,000. The crowd gasped in shock. "What? That's crazy!" someone exclaimed. "You can't waste that much money on a woman." Another bidder scoffed. But the man didn't care. His gaze stayed on Jennifer. The auctioneer slammed down his gavel. "Sold to Prince Audrey for 100,000, he declared. As they left the auction house, Jennifer had many questions. Who was this man? Why had he saved her? Meanwhile, her aunties called Baron to ask about Jennifer. "Is she out of the country?" they asked. Baron lied smoothly. "Yes, she's long gone. You will never see her again." But he had already sold Jennifer to Prince Audrey and collected the money without caring about her fate. Prince Audrey took Jennifer to his home. She was grateful and said, "Thank you for buying me, sir. Thank you for saving my life." But Prince Audrey laughed. "I didn't buy you to save your life, young woman. I bought you because I need a son. I need a son to inherit my father's throne. I have many siblings and they already have sons, but as the eldest, I must have a son to become king. If my father passes away without me giving him a son, I won't be crowned king." Jennifer's eyes widened in horror. "You paid so much money just for a child? Why not have children with your wife?" Prince Audrey's face turned sad. "I was married before, but my wife cheated on me. She had 3 girls, but none of them were mine. I don't trust women anymore. That's why I bought you. I want a son, and I want to make sure he's really mine. A friend told me about Baron's illegal auction, so I decided to come myself." He reached out to touch her hair, but Jennifer slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me." Prince Audrey's eyes narrowed. "Fine, be that way. But you will bear me a son. Young woman, you have no choice." "I refuse to be part of your game," Jennifer said defiantly, her eyes blazing. Prince Audrey smiled. "Watch and see, Jennifer. You will do as I say. I will always get what I want." Jennifer's mind raced as she tried to understand Prince Audrey's words. She was horrified by his plans to use her to have a son. She knew she had to escape, but the prince's guards were watching her every move. Prince Audrey approached her, his eyes determined. Jennifer, I know you are hesitant, but I assure you, this is the only way to secure your freedom. You will bear me a son, and in return, I will set you free. Jennifer shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I can't do this, sir. I won't be a part of your game. Prince Audrey's face darkened. Fine, then you will rot in this prison forever. You will never see the light of day again. Jennifer knew she had to think fast. She couldn't give in to the prince's demand, but she also couldn't spend the rest of her life in captivity. She needed a plan, and she needed it fast. Just then, a soft knock at the door broke the tension. Enter, Prince Audrey called out. A servant entered, bowing low. Your Highness, the royal advisor requests an audience with you. Prince Audrey's eyes narrowed. Tell him I am busy. But the servant hesitated. He insists, Your Highness. He says it's urgent. Prince Audrey sighed. Fine, I will see him. But this isn't over, Jennifer. You will bear me a son, or you will suffer the consequences. He stormed out of the room, leaving Jennifer alone with the servant. The servant approached Jennifer with a sympathetic gaze. My lady, what should I get you to eat? Jennifer's response was firm. I'm not your lady, and I don't need anything. But if you truly wish to assist me, help me escape from here. I'll be forever grateful. The servant's eyes dropped, and he bowed. I regret I cannot assist with that, my lady. If there is no other thing, I beg to take my leave. He quickly departed, leaving Jennifer alone in her room. A few minutes later, Prince Audrey stormed back into the room, his anger palpable. He paced back and forth, his eyes blazing with intensity. Jennifer asked, her voice steady, What is wrong? He halted his pacing and turned to her, his expression pleading. Are you ready to do what I ask? I implore you, Jennifer. My father's health is failing, and I must ensure my claim to the throne is secure. I beg of you, help me in this matter. I'm not here to force you, but please help me out. My father is sick. This is the information I've just received. I don't wish anything to happen to my father, the king, but I still want to be prepared in case anything happens. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. You want me to bear you a son, just in case your father dies. You want to use me to secure your claim to the throne? Prince Audrey's eyes flashed with anger, but he composed himself quickly. I'm not using you, Jennifer. I'm offering you a chance to gain your freedom. You'll be treated like a queen, and our son will be the future king. You will have everything you could possibly want. Jennifer scoffed. Freedom? You call being a prisoner and a breeding tool freedom? No, thank you. I'd rather die than submit to your plans. Prince Audrey's face darkened. You are not in a position to refuse me, Jennifer. You are mine now, and you will do as I say. Prince Audrey's face showed a mix of anger and desire. He growled at Jennifer. You think you can reject me? His hot breath was on her face. I've been patient, but I can't wait anymore. You will do what I want, one way or the other. Jennifer tried to push him away, but he was too strong. He pinned her against the wall and started kissing her forehead. She asked him to wait, saying, Don't force me. Give me some time, let me freshen up. Prince Audrey replied, I'll be waiting for you. Jennifer went to the bathroom, locked herself in, and cried. She didn't know what to do. After a while, Audrey asked her to come out. She did and suggested they take a test if they are compatible for having children together. Audrey said, I'm O positive and my blood genotype is AA, so I can marry anyone. Jennifer asked, Do you know if I have any disease? You barely know me. Audrey replied, "You don't have sickness. You don't look corrupt." Jennifer then asked him to promise that if they had a girl, he would let her go. But Audrey wanted a son and insisted they try again if the child was a girl. Jennifer reluctantly agreed, and they were intimate. With tears in her eyes, Audrey promised to help her if she gave him a son. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Despite the strange situation, Audrey began to show Jennifer kindness and affection. He brought her beautiful gifts. He spent time talking with her and making her comfortable. Jennifer found herself softening towards him, but she never forgot the situation that brought her there. One afternoon, the prince came back with smiles on his face and went to Jennifer. "Pretty, I received a report that you are pregnant." "Thank you. I'm so excited. I just pray it's a boy," the prince said. Jennifer felt a mix of emotions. She was scared, confused, and hopeful. Maybe things might turn out well, she thought to herself. Back at the Thomases' house, Mr. Thomas's sisters and their husbands had succeeded in sharing their brother's wealth. They took over his house, his money, and even his businesses. But despite getting everything they wanted, they weren't satisfied. They fought and quarreled among themselves over who should get more. They didn't care about anyone else, and they totally forgot about Mrs. Thomas, who was still in the hospital. "She is more or less dead. She is of no use," they said heartlessly. But Mr. Thomas's best friend, Dr. Daniel, owned the clinic where Mrs. Thomas was being treated. He took very care of her, making sure she had everything she needed. But he couldn't stop wondering why Jennifer wasn't coming to check on her mother. "She can't be this cruel like her aunties," Dr. Daniel thought out loud. He was very worried about Jennifer and couldn't understand why she hadn't visited her mother. One day, Dr. Daniel decided to visit one of Jennifer's aunties to ask about Jennifer's whereabouts. He went to Auntie Clara's house and knocked on the door. Auntie Clara opened the door and looked at him with a scowl. "Hello, Auntie Clara," Dr. Daniel greeted her politely. "I am very worried about Jennifer. She hasn't visited her mother in the hospital. Do you know where she is?" Clara glared at him and said, "Am I Jennifer's keeper? Why are you asking me?" Dr. Daniel tried to remain calm. "Please, Clara, it's very important. Mrs. Thomas is very ill and she needs her daughter. Do you have any idea where Jennifer might be?" Clara huffed and said, "I have no idea where that girl is. Now, if you will excuse me, I have things to do." She slammed the door in Dr. Daniel's face. Dr. Daniel felt frustrated and worried. He had hoped that Clara would give him some information about Jennifer, but she hadn't been helpful at all. He returned to the clinic, determined to continue taking care of Mrs. Thomas. Meanwhile, Mrs. Thomas was slowly getting better, thanks to Dr. Daniel's care. She often asked about Jennifer, but no one had any answer for her. "Where is my daughter?" she would ask weakly, her eyes filled with worry. Dr. Daniel would hold her hand and say, "Don't worry, Mrs. Thomas. We will find Jennifer. Just focus on getting better." Back in Prince Audrey's palace, Jennifer was trying to adjust to her new life. She was now pregnant with Prince Audrey's child. Despite the strange circumstances, she tried to stay strong for the sake of her baby. Prince Audrey continued to show her kindness and affection. He brought her gifts, talked to her, and tried to make her feel at home. But Jennifer couldn't forget how she had ended up there. She missed her mother terribly and often thought about her. One day, as Jennifer was walking in the garden, Prince Audrey joined her. "How are you feeling today?" he asked gently. Jennifer sighed. "I am okay, but I miss my mother. I hope she is alright." Prince Audrey looked at her with concern. "I understand. I will send someone to find out how she is doing." Jennifer felt a glimmer of hope. "Thank you, Audrey. That means a lot to me." Prince Audrey nodded and left to make arrangements. Back at the Thomases' house, the aunties continued to fight amongst themselves. They were greedy and never satisfied with what they had. They forgot all about Mrs. Thomas in the hospital and never thought about her. Dr. Daniel continued to care for Mrs. Thomas, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I need to find Jennifer, he thought. She wouldn't just abandon her mother like this. He decided to visit Thomas' house again, hoping to find some clues about Jennifer's whereabouts. When he arrived, he found the sisters arguing loudly in the living room. I deserve more than you, Auntie Betty shouted. I was the closest to Thomas. No, I deserve more, Auntie Clara yelled. I did more for him than any of you. Dr. Daniel cleared his throat and asked, Excuse me, but has anyone heard from Jennifer? The sisters stopped arguing and turned to look at him. Why do you keep asking about her? Auntie Clara snapped. She probably ran away because she couldn't handle the responsibility. Dr. Daniel frowned. That doesn't sound like Jennifer. She loved her father. In fact, she loved her parents so much. I will find her no matter what. He left the house, more determined than ever to find Jennifer and reunite her with her mother. As the days passed, Audrey's joy knew no bounds. He showered Jennifer with love and care, promising her the world. He bought her lavish gifts, took her on romantic walks, and whispered sweet words in her ears. Jennifer's heart swelled with happiness, but she couldn't shake off the feeling that this was all temporary, that once she gave birth, Audrey would take the children away from her. As the months went by, Jennifer's belly grew rounder, and Audrey's affection only grew stronger. He would surprise her with her favorite dishes, massage her feet, and read her favorite books aloud. But amidst all the pampering, Jennifer couldn't help but feel like she was living a lie. She was also deeply concerned about her mother. I don't know if those wicked people have killed her or if she is out of danger, she thought to herself. One day, while Audrey was out, Jennifer broke down in tears. She realized that she had fallen deeply in love with Audrey, but she knew he would never love her for who she truly was. She felt like she was just a means to an end, a way for him to secure his royal lineage. The day finally arrived when Jennifer gave birth to two adorable sons. Audrey was overjoyed and celebrated her by giving her a luxurious car. But Jennifer refused, her heart heavy with the knowledge that she would soon be separated from her children. After 3 months of staying with her kids, Jennifer decided it was time to leave. I have to go, to check on my mother and fight for my rights, she said, her voice firm but her eyes filled with tears. I need to get revenge for what my aunties did to me. I can't stay here and be a mere nanny for my children. You will never tell them I gave birth to them. I need to secure my rightful place in my father's house. Audrey begged her to stay, holding their children close. Please, Jennifer, don't go, he begged, his voice cracking with emotions. I know I hurt you. I know my approach was wrong, but I swear on our children's lives, I truly love you. I'm sorry for forcing you to have children for me, but I can't imagine living without you now. As they stood in the doorway, the babies started crying loudly, their tiny voices piercing through the air. Jennifer's heart melted, and she couldn't help but pick up one of the babies from Audrey's hand, cradling him in her arms. I love you so much, my child, she whispered, her voice trembling. It hurts me that I have to leave you guys, and I might not see you again, but I have to do this for myself, for my future. She returned the baby to Audrey, who dropped them onto a nearby chair, his eyes fixed on Jennifer. He fell to his knees again, his hand grasping her legs, begging her not to leave him alone. Please, Jennifer, stay with me. I can't imagine a life without you. Jennifer's heart raced as she looked at Audrey, her resolve weakening. She saw the sincerity in his eyes, the desperation in his voice, and her mind was torn. She wanted to believe him, but she couldn't shake off the feeling that she was just a means to secure his royal lineage. Stay or what? Jennifer asked. My children's nanny or what? Audrine's face lit up with hope. He replied, as my woman, my love, my wife, I want to officially marry you and introduce you to my family. I want to love you and our children forever. Jennifer's heart melted at his words, and she felt her resolve weakening. She saw the love in his eyes, the desperation in his voice, and he knew that she couldn't leave him, not yet at least. Okay, Audrey, she said finally, I will stay, but only for my kids alone. I can't marry you, Jennifer said, her voice firm. Audrey replied, I know you are angry, but I will give you time to get over everything. Jennifer returned inside, carrying one of the babies, and Audrey's face lit up with joy. When Jennifer went inside, she didn't know if she could be happy or grateful. She didn't make Audrey realize she loved him. While in her room, Audrey came to her, holding her hands in his. My dear, trust me, going to fight your aunties like this will make you vulnerable. They will take advantage of you again and might even hurt you. Let's strategize before going. Please accept my marriage proposal. Let's get married. Your fight is now my fight. I promise you that you will get everything you lost. I promise I will deal with your aunties. I will protect you with my last drop of blood. I still don't trust you, Audrey, Jennifer said, her voice laced with skepticism. I feel you want to keep me here because you want me to make more babies for you. Audrey's expression turned contrite. His eyes filled with a mix of regret and longing. I understand you are scared because I started on the wrong path in this relationship, he replied, his voice gentle, but I have never treated you inhumanly since you arrived here. Even when you didn't get pregnant on time, I didn't put pressure on you. I have taken care of you, provided for you, and loved you to the best of my ability. Even when I didn't say it, I was wrong to manipulate you into getting pregnant, but I promise to make it right. Trust me and give me a chance. Do it for me and for our children. They need their mother and father to be happy and together. Jennifer's expression remained guarded, but a small part of her felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, Audrey was genuinely changing, but she still needed time to think, to process her feelings and doubts. Give me some time to think, she repeated, her voice firm but slightly. Jennifer took a deep breath and knocked on Audrey's door. Her heart was beating fast. Audrey opened the door and smiled warmly at her. That smile made her feel a little braver. Audrey, Jennifer began, her voice a bit shaky. I've thought a lot about us, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Audrey's eyes sparkled with joy. He gently pulled her into a hug. I will love you forever, Jennifer, he whispered. Then he kissed her softly. Jennifer felt her heart fill with happiness. A few weeks later, Jennifer, Audrey, and their two babies went to the palace. Audrey's father, King Albert, was very sick and lying in bed. The king's face lit up when he saw his son and grandchildren. He smiled weakly at Jennifer. I've heard so many good things about you, Jennifer, the king said in a very soft voice. I'm glad you are here. You must be very special to have made Audrey love again. He promised never to love another woman after his first wife hurt him, but you changed that. The king looked at Jennifer with gratitude. You have brought joy and happiness back into Audrey's life, and for that, I am very grateful. I want to bless your union and welcome you into our family. As the king spoke, Audrey's brother, Prince Austin, and Prince Frank stood nearby. They didn't look happy, but the king didn't notice. He was focused on Jennifer and Audrey. The king prayed for Audrey and Jennifer, blessing their union and welcoming Jennifer into the family. Jennifer smiled and felt very happy. A month later, Audrey and Jennifer got married in a small simple ceremony. They promised to love each other forever. Their love was stronger than ever. After the wedding, Jennifer and Audrey went to Jennifer's old home. One of her aunties had taken over the house. The aunt was shocked to see Jennifer. "You are supposed to be dead," the aunt exclaimed. Jennifer smiled coldly. "I'm very much alive and I've come for what is mine." The aunt tried to run away, but Jennifer and Audrey were too quick. They caught her and handed her over to the police. While the police were taking her away, the aunt revealed that her sister was at another location. Jennifer and Audrey followed this lead and found the second aunt. She was also arrested. The second aunt revealed that the third aunt was hiding in a different place. Jennifer and Audrey tracked her down and she too was arrested. As the police took the aunties away, Jennifer confronted them. "How could you be so mean?" she asked, her voice filled with anger and sadness. "You didn't even let me mourn my dad, but sold me into slavery instead. Where is my mother?" The aunties looked ashamed. "We were desperate, Jennifer. We didn't know what else to do," one of them said. Jennifer shook her head. "You should have thought of that before betraying me. Now, the tables have turned and I'm in control. I will find out the truth about my parents," Jennifer declared, looking at her aunties. "I know one of you is responsible for what my mother is going through. Where is she?" One of the aunties shook her head, pretending to be innocent. "I don't know about your mother. I didn't harm your parents, Jennifer. It was her," she said, pointing at another auntie. "She poisoned your food, but your parents ended up eating it instead." Jennifer's face turned pale with shock. "No, that can't be," she stammered, looking at the two aunties. Without another word, Jennifer turned to the police. "Take them away," she said coldly. "I want them to pay for what they have done. Now I need to find my mom." Jennifer went to the hospital and asked about her mother. She was directed to her mother's ward. Jennifer was happy and thanked God that her mother was still alive, though she was very weak. Prince Aldrin met Jennifer's mom for the first time and felt pity for her condition. They cleared the bill and took her home so she could be under Jennifer's care. After the aunts were arrested, Jennifer and Audrey went to her father's grave. Jennifer cried as she introduced Audrey to her father. Audrey held her close, trying to comfort her. Later, they went to the lawyer's office to read her father's will. Everything her parents owned was left to Jennifer. She was overjoyed but still missed her parents very much. Jennifer and Audrey spent the next week in town sorting out all the property documents. Finally, they returned to their hotel room to have some peaceful time alone. Audrey and Jennifer were enjoying in a romantic evening in their hotel room, finally having some quiet time after a busy day. But then, Audrey's phone rang, breaking the calm. It was his mother. "Audrey, it's your mother. The king had passed away. You need to come home immediately." Her trembling voice. Audrey's face fell. He felt like his world was crashing. Jennifer saw the shock and grief on his face. "What is it?" she asked, worried. Audrey took a deep breath. His voice shook as he delivered the news. "My father, the king, has died. I need to go home now." Jennifer's eyes widened in shock. She quickly gathered her belongings. "I'm coming with you," she said firmly. Audrey nodded, grateful for her support. Together they rushed out of the hotel room, took Jennifer's mom with them, and left for the palace. Audrey and Jennifer arrived at the palace feeling very sad. The king, Audrey's father, had died. The palace was filled with tension and sadness. Audrey's brother, Prince Austin and Prince Frank, looked at him with suspicion and resentment. The burial ceremony was a big event with important people from all over the kingdom attending. Audrey gave a heartfelt speech talking about his father's wisdom and kindness. But underneath, there was a struggle for power. Audrey was the eldest son, so he was the rightful heir to the throne. But his brothers had different plans. They had always felt that their father favored Audrey and saw this as a chance to take the throne for themselves. After the burial, the princes gathered in the throne room. Prince Austin, the most outspoken, challenged Audrey. You were always father's favorite, he sneered, but that doesn't mean you are the best for the throne. Audrey stood tall, his eyes determined. I will not be bullied or intimidated, he declared. I am the rightful king, and I will do what's best for this kingdom. Jennifer stood by Audrey's side, showing her support. I will not let you bring harm to my husband or the kingdom, she said firmly. Prince Austin sneered at her. And who are you to interfere in royal matters? He asked disdainfully. Audrey's face darkened with anger. She is my wife, and her words carries weight. He said firmly, I will not be threatened by your schemes. Prince Frank joined in. You are just a commoner, Jennifer. You don't belong here. Audrey remained calm but was very angry. Enough, he commanded. You will respect my wife and your future queen. But his brothers continued to insult Jennifer and question the legitimacy of her children. You are just a nobody, Prince Austin said. Your children are bastards born out of wedlock. The queen, Audrey's mother, couldn't bear the insult and stormed into the room, her face red with anger. How dare you, she thundered. How dare you speak of my son and his wife in such a manner? The princes stopped their verbal assault, but their eyes still burned with resentment. Prince Austin pointed at Jennifer. She's just a commoner, mother. She doesn't belong here. The queen's eyes flashed with anger. Jennifer is my son's wife, and a noble woman. You will not speak ill of her again. Prince Frank added, but mother, Audrey is impotent. He can't even produce a child. That is why his first wife cheated on him. The queen's face darkened with grief. How dare you say such a thing? Audrey is capable of having children. You will not question him again. Prince Austin's voice dripped with venom. We believe Jennifer got pregnant by another man. Those children are not Audrey's, and he knows it. The queen's eyes filled with tears. Your father would be ashamed of you all, fighting instead of uniting for the kingdom. Your father just passed away, and you are already fighting over the throne. Prince Austin stood tall. I am the rightful heir, and I will take the throne. Audrey is just a pretender. We will not be denied our rightful place. Audrey's face darkened with anger. You will not take anything from me. I am the rightful heir, and I will not let you take my throne. The chiefs entered the room, their faces serious. My princes, their leaders said, we have reviewed the ancient laws. Audrey is the rightful heir to the throne. But Prince Austin and Prince Frank refused to accept the verdict, shouting and arguing. You are just a bunch of old men, out of touch with the times. Prince Austin yelled, Audrey is a pretender, and he will never rule over us. The queen's eyes filled with tears as she watched her children argue. She knew this was not what her late husband would have wanted, and she feared for the kingdom's future. Prince Frank suggested, let us have a DNA test. I will prove those children are not Audrey's. They are bastards. The chief replied, Prince Austin can only be king if the children are not Audrey's. If they are, Audrey will be the king. The ancient laws are clear. Prince Austin's face turned red with rage. I will never accept that. I will take the throne no matter what. After they returned home, Audrey approached Jennifer to apologize for the hurtful words his siblings had said, but instead of accepting his apology, she made a heartfelt request. I'm not angry, Audrey, but please, for the sake of our love and our children, forget about the throne, Jennifer said with concern. Audrey teased her. What do you mean? Are the kids not mine? Did you sleep with my guards to get pregnant? Jennifer pushed him away, her face red with anger. How dare you, Audrey? I was a prisoner here when I got pregnant. How could I sleep with someone else? You took my virginity yourself. What nonsense words, she exclaimed. Audrey quickly apologized. I'm sorry, baby. I just wanted to see you angry. Forgive me. Jennifer accepted his apology, but repeated her plea. Leave the throne, Audrey. I've lost too many people in my life. I don't want to lose you too. Audrey hesitated, torn between his love for Jennifer and his birthright. I love you and the kids, but the throne is my birthright. I won't leave it. Jennifer stood up, her face determined. Then I'm leaving. Audrey chased after her, begging her to stay. My baby, stop getting angry. I want you to be the queen. But Jennifer was resolute. Not interested, Audrey. Your life is more important than that throne. Do what you think is best for you. I love you. With that, she went to play with their children, leaving Audrey to ponder his choices. Prince Austin and Prince Frank stood in front of Audrey's house, their faces twisted with malice. Those kids can't be Audrey. Austin muttered to himself. I gave him medicine long ago to make him impotent. He won't have children. And now the useless Jennifer has given birth to two kids, two sons. Frank nodded in agreement. Yes, it's impossible. We need to do a DNA test to prove those kids aren't his. They entered Audrey's house, their eyes scanning the room for him. Audrey, we need to talk, Austin said, his voice dripping with deceit. Audrey appeared, his eyes narrowing at their presence. What do you want? We want to do a DNA test for your sons, Austin said, a smile on his face. We need to know if they are really yours. Audrey raised an eyebrow. And why should I agree to that? Because we have doubts about the paternity. Frank nodded. Audrey smiled. Very well, but I want the DNA test done for all of us, including your own kids, and I will choose the hospital, one that won't manipulate the results. Austin and Frank exchanged uneasy glances. They had already arranged for a doctor to manipulate the results if the kids were indeed Audrey's. No, we have our own doctor in mind, Austin said. Audrey shook his head. I won't agree to that. If you're so sure the kids aren't mine, then let's do the test at a neutral hospital. Austin and Frank refused, and the argument ended with them storming out of Audrey's house, their faces red with anger. We need to get rid of Audrey, Austin fumed as they walked away from the house. He and the chiefs won't let us have the throne. It's better to send him where our father is. Frank nodded in agreement. Yes, let's get rid of him once and for all. We need to get rid of Audrey once and for all, Austin repeated, his voice low. He is the only one standing in our way to the throne. Frank nodded again. Yes, and we have the perfect plan. We will make it look like an accident, and no one will suspect a thing. The shadowy figures nodded, their faces hidden in the darkness. We will take care of it, one of them said, but it won't be cheap. Austin smiled, his eyes glinting with cruelty. Money is no object. We will pay whatever it takes to get rid of Audrey. As they finalized their plans, Audrey was unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. He was busy with Jennifer and the children, enjoying a rare moment of peace at home. The next morning, Jennifer had a terrible nightmare. She screamed and woke up, her heart racing. Audrey quickly grabbed her and held her close. What is wrong, my love? He asked, his voice filled with concern. Jennifer's eyes were wide with fear. I had a bad dream, she said, her voice trembling. You were in an accident and never came back. Audrey laughed and stroked her hair. It's just a nightmare, my love. Don't worry, I'm right here with you. But Jennifer's fear lingered. Please don't go today, Audrey, she begged, her eyes welling up with tears. I have a bad feeling. Audrey's expression turned stubborn. I have to go, Jennifer. It's just a business meeting. I'll be back in 2 days. Jennifer's tears spilled over and she clung to Audrey. Don't go, please, she whispered. Audrey's face softened and he kissed her forehead. I'll be fine, my love, I promise. But Jennifer's intuition screamed warnings. She knew something was off, but Audrey wouldn't listen. Don't you understand, Audrey? Jennifer pleaded. I'm scared. I don't want anything to happen to you. Audrey smiled and pulled her close. I know what you want, Jennifer, he whispered, his voice husky. You want some intimate moments, don't you? Jennifer's face flushed and she pushed him away. That's not it, Audrey. I'm serious. But Audrey just laughed and kissed her, silencing her fears with his intimate touch. They shared a passionate moment before he traveled that morning, leaving Jennifer with a sense of unease that lingered long after he was gone. Audrey was driving his car. Another car was following him. They kept following him until they got to a quiet road. Then they stopped in front of him. Audrey got out of his car and asked, "What do you want?" But they didn't answer. Instead, they started hitting him with sticks. Audrey tried to defend himself, but they were too strong. He fell to the ground. They put Audrey in his car and set it on fire. They made it look like an accident. They wanted people to think Audrey's car got fire and he died, but they didn't want to get caught. So they left quickly when they saw other cars coming. They got in their own car and drove away fast. They wanted to make it look like Audrey's death was an accident, not a murder. Audrey's eyes slowly opened as he looked at his surroundings. He was met with a horrifying sight. His car was engulfed in flames. Panic set in as he realized he was trapped. With a surge of adrenaline, Audrey tried to force open the door, but they wouldn't budge. The smoke was thick and choking, making it hard to breathe. He coughed and gasped, his vision blurring. "No, no," Audrey screamed, pounding on the windows. "Help! Somebody help me!" But his cries were drowned out by the roar of the fire. The flames grew higher and hotter, the heat intense and suffocating. Audrey's strength began to fade. His consciousness slipped away. He slumped forward, his head hitting the steering wheel. A good Samaritan, a middle-aged man with a kind face, rushed to Audrey's aid, pulling him from the wreckage just as the flames were about to engulf him. But it was too late. Audrey had already inhaled a dangerous amount of smoke, and his lungs were struggling to get oxygen to his body. As the Samaritan laid him on the ground, Adrian's eyes fluttered closed, his body going limp. He was unconscious, his brain suffering from severe hypoxia, a lack of oxygen. The Samaritan called for an ambulance, and Audrey was rushed to the hospital, where he was placed in a medically induced coma. His brain activity was minimal, his vital signs stable but fragile. Audrey's life hung in the balance, his body fighting to recover from the devastating effects of the fire. The phone rang in the silence of Austin's chamber. He answered, his voice low and expectant. "Yes." "Mission accomplished." "Your Highness," a low voice replied. "Audrey is no more." His eyes gleamed with triumph as he listened to the words he had longed to hear. "Excellent work." His smile widening. "You will be rewarded handsomely." As he hung up the phone, his mind raced with the implications of Audrey's demise. He would finally take the rightful place as king, and no one would dare to oppose him. The throne was within his grasp, and nothing could stop him for now. Jennifer's eyes were fixed on her phone, her heart racing with every passing moment. She had been trying to reach Audrey for hours, but his phone remained unreachable. She had tried to stay calm, telling herself he was just busy or out of range, but the worry was eating away at her. She paced back and forth in their living room, her mind filled with worst-case scenarios. She couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Her husband, her rock, her everything was nowhere to be found. Just as she was about to break down, she saw the news flash on TV. A car was engulfed in flames. The driver didn't survive. Jennifer's heart stopped as she saw the license plate, partially visible despite the damage. It was Audrey's car. Her world came crashing down around her. She felt like she was suffocating, unable to breathe. Her loving husband, her partner, her best friend was gone. She collapsed onto the couch, her body shaking with sobs. "Audrey, no, please no, this can't be happening," she wailed, her voice echoing through the empty rooms. She felt like a part of her had been ripped away. leaving a gaping hole that could never be filled. After composing herself, Jennifer called the queen, her hand still shaking as she dialed the number. The queen answered immediately, her voice warm and comforting. Jennifer dear, what is wrong? You sound upset. Jennifer took a deep breath before blurting out the news. It's Audrey, Your Majesty. I saw it on TV. His car, it was on fire. The queen's tone shifted from warmth to alarm. What are you talking about, Jennifer? What happened? Jennifer explained what she had seen, her voice cracking as she revealed the horror. The queen listened intently. As soon as Jennifer finished speaking, the queen sprang into action. Frank, Austin, go to the scene now. Confirm if it's true. The princes were dispatched immediately, their faces grim as they rushed to the scene. When they returned, their expressions were somber, their eyes avoiding the queen's. Mother, it's true, Frank said. It was Audrey's car. He didn't make it. The car was reduced to ashes, and so was he. The queen's wail echoed through the palace, her body shaking with grief. As their mother, the queen cried on the ground. Austin and Frank smiled to themselves. They went outside and discussed among themselves. Austin said to Frank, now that Audrey is out of the way, nothing can stop me from becoming the king. Frank thought to himself, you fool, you think you are so clever, but you are just a pawn in my game. You are next to go down. He smiled and nodded in agreement, hiding his true thoughts. Austin, ignorant of Frank's inner thought, continued to boast. I'm happy Audrey is out of the way. Me too, brother, me too, Frank said, smiling. But his smile was a mask for his sinister intentions, hidden from Austin's naive eyes. The royal family gathered in the palace, their faces somber and grave. They had summoned Jennifer to deliver the devastating news about Audrey's fate. The queen, her eyes red from crying, took a deep breath before speaking. Jennifer dear, we have some terrible news to share with you. Audrey, he didn't make it. Jennifer's eyes widened in disbelief, her mind refusing to accept the truth. What do you mean? Frank stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. Jennifer, we are so sorry. Audrey's car was engulfed in flames. He didn't survive. Jennifer's world crumbled around her. She felt like she was suffocating, unable to breathe. Her loving husband, her partner, her best friend was gone. The family tried to comfort her, but Jennifer was inconsolable. She refused to believe that Audrey was truly gone. Days passed, and the family made preparation for Audrey's burial. They collected the ashes from the car and placed them in a coffin, which they buried in the royal cemetery. But Jennifer was not present at the burial. She was too grief-stricken to attend. Instead, she stayed in her room, surrounded by the memories of Audrey. She couldn't bear the thought of living without him. Meanwhile, Austin was busy covering his tracks. He used his influence to stop the police investigation into Audrey's death, claiming that it was an accident. He also made sure that Jennifer and the children were thrown out of Audrey's house, leaving them with nothing. Jennifer returned to her parents' house, seeking refuge for the palace stress. She was determined to take control of her destiny and find her husband, Audrey, who was believed was still alive. Back at the palace, the queen mother pleaded with her sons to bring Jennifer back, but they refused. They had other plans, conspiring to take the throne. They called upon the chiefs to crown Austin the next week. However, Frank had a hidden agenda. He had been gathering evidence to frame Austin for Audrey's murder. The day of the coronation arrived. As Austin was about to be crowned, Frank burst into the ceremony, his eyes blazing with determination. Stop this coronation at once, Frank thundered, his voice echoing off the palace walls. Austin is a murderer and a traitor, and he must be brought to justice. The room fell silent with all eyes fixed on Frank and Austin. The queen mother's face turned pale with shock, and the chiefs and nobles looked on in confusion. "What are you talking about?" Austin fired back, his face twisted in contempt. "You are just trying to sabotage my coronation." "I have evidence, Austin," Frank replied, his voice steady. "Evidence that proves you ordered the hit on Audrey. You are not fit to be king, and I won't let you get away with this." Frank reviewed his evidence, exposing Austin's guilt. As Frank presented the evidence, Austin tried to defend himself, claiming that Frank was involved in the murder. However, the evidence Frank provided was too convincing, and no one believed Austin's claims. "This is a clear case of premeditated murder," said the police commissioner. "We have a mountain of evidence that links Austin to the crime. He's going down for this." The police officers handcuffed Austin and led him away. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in the court of law." The Queen Mother's face contorted in anguish as she beheld her son being led away in chains. She had never imagined that her own flesh and blood could be capable of such a heinous crime. "You wicked son!" she cried, her voice shaking with rage and grief. "How could you kill Audrey, your own brother? You are no son of mine." She turned to Frank, her eyes brimming with tears. "Thank you, son, for exposing Austin's wickedness. You have done a great service to our kingdom." Frank bowed his head, his expression somber. "It was my duty, Your Majesty. I could not stand and watch while his evil deeds went unpunished." The Queen's gaze returned to Austin, her eyes blazing with anger. "You will pay for your crimes, Austin. You will rot in prison for the rest of your days, and may your name be forever forgotten in our kingdom." Before being dragged away by the police, Austin turned to Frank with a fierce gaze. "You will pay for this," he spat. "You will pay for betraying me. I will get back at you," he snarled. "You may have won this time, but I will not rest until I bring you down." The kingdom was in shock after Austin's arrest. The Queen Mother was heartbroken, unable to understand how her own son could commit such a terrible crime. Frank was praised as a hero for bringing Austin to justice. Meanwhile, Audrey was still in the hospital, unconscious after the car accident. Jennifer was devastated. She took her kids and hid them in a safe place, then went to investigate the accident scene with a private investigator. They spoke to the witnesses, who revealed that the accident was actually a murder attempt. Jennifer was told that a car had stopped, injured Audrey, and then forced him into the driver's seat before setting the car on fire. Jennifer was overcome with grief, crying uncontrollably. "They killed my husband, those evil people," she exclaimed. "I warned him not to leave the house. What will happen to me and the kids now?" Just then, another witness approached her. "We don't know if the man is really dead," he said. "He was taken away in an ambulance to a hospital." Jennifer's tears stopped suddenly. "Do you mean it?" she asked, her voice filled with hope. The man nodded. "Yes, he was rescued and taken to a hospital. He was still alive when they took him away." Jennifer's heart raced with excitement. She asked which hospital, but the man didn't know. Jennifer took Audrey's photo and went from one hospital to another, determined to find her husband. Jennifer searched hospital after hospital, showing Audrey's photo to anyone who would look. She was met with shake after shake, and her hope began to dwindle. Just when she thought she couldn't search anymore, she walked into another hospital. Her feet heavy with exhaustion, she approached the reception desk. "I'm looking for my husband. He was in a car accident. I think he might be here." The receptionist scanned the photo, then shook her head. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We don't know this person." Jennifer's heart sank and she turned to leave. But just then, a doctor called out to her. "Wait, ma'am. Let me see that photo." He examined it carefully, then looked up at Jennifer with a hint of recognition. "This man, he's here. He's in a coma." Jennifer's heart leaped with joy and relief. "Where is he?" she asked, her voice trembling. The doctor smiled and led her to Audrey's room. Jennifer's heart raced as she followed the doctor to Audrey's room. She had been searching for what felt like eternity, and finally, she was about to be reunited with her husband. The doctor pushed open the door, and Jennifer's eyes fell on Audrey's peaceful face. He lay motionless, his chest rising and falling with each breath. Jennifer's eyes welled up with tears as she rushed to his side. Audrey, my love, she whispered, taking his hand in hers. I'm here. I found you. She gazed at his face, willing him to wake up, to respond to her presence, but he remained still, lost in a deep coma. Jennifer's heart ached with sadness and longing. She had found him, but he was still so far away. Jennifer begged Audrey to wake up, her voice cracking with emotion. Audrey, please, for me, for our kids, wake up. But Audrey remained still, his eyes closed, his chest rising and falling with each breath. The doctor gently touched Jennifer's shoulder. Ma'am, please, follow me to my office. We need to talk. Jennifer hesitated, unwilling to leave Audrey's side. But the doctor's urgent tone convinced her to follow him. As she stood up, she felt a sudden tug on her dress. She turned back to see Audrey's hand grasping her dress tightly. Her heart skipped a beat as she saw his eyes flicker open. Audrey! She exclaimed. The doctor rushed back to Audrey's side. It's a miracle, he exclaimed. This man has been in a coma for over 3 months, motionless, and now he's showing signs of consciousness. Jennifer's heart raced as she gazed at Audrey's face. His eyes were still cloudy, but they were open, and they were looking at her. Audrey, can you hear me? She asked, her voice trembling. Audrey's lip moved, but no sound came out. Jennifer leaned closer, her ear inches from his mouth. Jennifer, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Jennifer's heart soared. Yes, Audrey, it's me, I'm here. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A flicker of fear, a hint of warning. Audrey, what is it? She said. Audrey's eyes locked onto hers, and he whispered one word, run. Jennifer refused to run. Her eyes locked on Audrey's as he pleaded with her to flee. Leave me, Jennifer, save yourself. They are after my life, and I won't risk yours. But Jennifer's love and devotion would not be swayed. No, Audrey, I won't abandon you now that I have found you again. We will face whatever comes together, side by side. I will live with you, and if need be, I will die with you. Her words were sealed with a tender kiss on his forehead. Audrey's heart swelled with emotion, knowing he couldn't convince her to leave. Her love for him was stronger than any danger that threatened them. Soon, Audrey was discharged from the hospital. His body still weak, but his spirit renewed by Jennifer's unwavering support. Jennifer took him to her father's hometown. There, Audrey recovered fully, his strength and determination growing with each passing day. As they spent their days in quiet seclusion, Audrey's mind turned to the palace and the betrayal that lurked within. He knew he had to act, to surprise the palace and reclaim his rightful place as king. Jennifer sensed his resolve, her eyes sparkling with courage as she stood by his side, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Together, they planned their next move, their love and loyalty to each other, the foundation of their quest for justice. You are the reason I'm alive, Jennifer. I couldn't have made it without you, Audrey said, his voice filled with emotion. Jennifer's eyes shone with tears. We are in this together, Audrey, always. Their arrival at the palace was met with shock and awe. Frank was about to be crowned king, but the sight of Audrey and Jennifer left everyone stunned. The queen mother, thinking she was seeing a ghost, turned to flee, while others in the palace, including Frank, followed suit. But Jennifer's voice rang out, steady and clear. Audrey is alive. He's been in coma, but he's back. The crowd's disbelief was obvious, but Jennifer's words slowly sank in. They began to return, their faces etched with wonder and curiosity. Jennifer reached out her hand, touching Audrey's arms, proving to them that he was indeed flesh and blood. Audrey, with a warm smile, approached his mother, embracing her tenderly. Tears of joy streamed down her face as she held her son close, the reality of his return sinking in. The palace erupted in a mixture of cheers and tears, the news of Audrey's return spreading like wildfire. Frank's face contorted in anger and disbelief. Audrey, the rightful king, had returned, and nothing could ever take that away. The coronation was immediately stopped. The leader of the chief declared, now that the eldest son is back, he should be crowned the king. The other chiefs agreed, but Frank shouted in protest, no, I'm the king, crown me now, instructing the head of the chiefs. The head of the chiefs stood firm, declaring, the rightful king has returned. Audrey, the eldest son, is the true heir to the throne. We cannot crown you when the legitimate king stands before us. Frank stormed out of the palace room, only to return with a gun, shouting, crown me now, but the head of the chiefs refused. He pointed the gun at him, shocking everyone. I have done so much for this throne, Frank stated. I can't let Audrey be crowned. Jennifer hid behind Audrey's back as Frank turned to him. Why didn't you die? Audrey was shocked, realizing Frank was behind the attempt in his life. Frank dragged Jennifer out, pointing the gun at her. You are the cause of everything, he sneered. We made sure Audrey was impotent, but you gave birth to two sons, giving him access to fight for the throne again. Frank's anger boiled over, revealing his deceit. He had slept with Audrey's first wife, fathering 3 daughters, and plotted with Austin to destroy Audrey's family. Audrey fought back, grabbing the gun and throwing it away. He slapped Frank, and the Queen Mother intervened, calling the police. Before he was taken away, she gave him a hard slap, saying, you are worse than Austin. Frank was taken to the same cell as Austin, where they engaged in a vicious fight. After Frank was taken away by the police, the head of the chiefs turned to Audrey and Jennifer, a warm smile on his face. Audrey, you are the rightful king. And Jennifer, you are the new queen of our kingdom, he declared, placing the crown on Audrey's head and the queen's tiara on Jennifer's. The palace erupted in cheers and applause as the newly crowned king and queen embraced. Beaming with joy, the chiefs and courtiers gathered around, offering their congratulations. The kingdom celebrated grandly, with feasts and festivities that lasted for days. The streets were filled with music and laughter, and the people rejoiced at their new king and queen. Audrey and Jennifer sat on their thrones, surrounded by their subjects, their faces aglow with happiness. They knew they had a lot of work ahead of them, but they were determined to rule with wisdom and justice, bringing peace and prosperity to their kingdom. The Queen Mother stepped forward and embraced her son and daughter-in-law. I am so proud of you both, she said, tears of joy in her eyes. You will make a great king and queen, and I will be here to support you every step of the way. Later that night, Audrey and Jennifer sat alone in their room, surrounded by the quiet of the night. Audrey took Jennifer's hands, his eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you for coming into my life, Jennifer. I am so sorry for buying you with money at first. I was blind to what truly mattered. Jennifer smiled, her eyes shining with love. That's destiny, Audrey. I was sold so we could be together, and I love you so much. Audrey's face lit up with joy. I need another child, he said, his voice filled with longing. Jennifer laughed and got up, returning with their sons. Here are your children, she said, placing the boys in Audrey's arms. Audrey's face glowed with happiness as he held his family close. I have everything I need right here, he said, his voice filled with contentment. As they sat together, surrounded by the love they shared, they drifted off to sleep, their hearts full of joy and gratitude. The most important lesson in this story is the power of love and loyalty. Despite facing betrayal, danger, and seemingly insurmountable obstacles, Audrey and Jennifer's unwavering commitment to each other and their determination to seek justice prevailed. Their journey demonstrates that true strength lies not in power or wealth, but in the bonds of love and trust. Jennifer's steadfast support for Audrey even when all seemed lost, and Audrey's resolve to reclaim his rightful place while protecting his family highlights how love and loyalty can overcome any adversity and lead to ultimate triumph and happiness. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures, where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with joy, wonder, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.